The Texans, however, on a different plan. They are now they've dropped both preseason games. They did not look great. They get a turnover early in this game and are inside the 10 and can't score. So there's things that the Texans. This is going to be a much longer season for the Texans than I wanted, than a lot of people wanted. But because the Texans are starting to get beat up, because they don't have that depth, because they are rebuilding right now. They've had to cancel their joint practices. They were supposed to be going to New Orleans. I feel for every Houston Texans beat writer right now that was about to go enjoy a week in New Orleans, and that got canceled, and they got to stay in town. Especially got the wife and kids. You got to stay at home. You could have gone to New Orleans for 3 or 4 days to cover the Texans. I feel bad for you guys. Here's D'Amico Ryans on canceling practice, the joint practice with the Saints before the third preseason.
Yeah, with canceling the joint practice with the Saints is where we are as a team, a little banged up. So I thought it's in the best interest of our team, right, and putting our guys first that, we should do the joint practices. And thankful to Dennis and the Saints for, the opportunity to have the joint practice and, with them working with us being understandable. Also thankful to our support staff. Probably putting them in a bind right now. But they've been very helpful. Everybody's been on board with what we're doing, and one thing we always talk about is team first mentality, and that went into the decision. So thankful for Cal and his support, and also our support staff.
So on the flip side, we talk about Mike McCarthy and years of experience as a head coach, all of these things, and of knowledge of being a winning coach in Green Bay, having 2 winning seasons with Dallas, but still not feeling like they're really ready to be a Super Bowl team. And then this offseason, just from him going to the play calling to how they've handled everything, I don't have a ton of faith. This is showing D'Amico Ryans, I think, a bit more of his inexperience as head coaching. He's somebody on this Texan staff that pretty much everybody on this Texan staff is doing the highest job they've ever done. So there are worries as you get through the season. Are you able to continually make the right decisions and not kind of shoot yourself in the foot and have to backtrack and say, oh man, we learned that. How much learning on the job is there going to be? And this one seems to be one that you had a joint practice with Miami. You say, cool, that's going to be great. And then let's do, Dennis Allen hit us up down in New Orleans. Houston and New Orleans are pretty close. Let's do a joint practice with them too. We need our guys to work. We need our guys to work because they're young. We want to get as much practice as we can because we're playing like this whole season is really more of a learning curve of we know that the Texans are not going to be a playoff team. So this is all about the team progressing, and the more you can practice with the other teams, the more you can progress. However, not thinking ahead of, we're going to have some issues of depth because we just don't have the amount of guys. So as much as we want to get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson or Tank Dell or any of these younger guys some more work, we don't want to get our veterans that are hired guns. They don't really want to be doing this and working as hard as they are as these 21-year-old kids, the guys that are 31. And we don't need them to get beat up. We need them to be healthy. And the players behind that aren't going to make the roster, then why are we having them go to joint practices? Because they're not really going to help us because they're not going to be playing on that level and probably not going to be with the team in 2 years. So you have to start working on some other things. So it's good that D'Amico was able to make the audible and change plans and say it's not worth it for us to go over there. It's going to lower morale because we are beat up. The Saints are going to be more prepared, and we don't need to do that. We need to go work on ourselves for a week so we can kind of go into the season with a little bit better feel for it as opposed to going to Miami for a team that is a playoff team competing for their division, and we're not there yet. And then we play against them, and they beat us. Now we're going to play the Saints, and the Saints are competing for their division solely in the fact that that division is not very good right now. But you can go back to Houston and work on some things that you need to work on. Here's D'Amico Ryans talking about what canceling the joint practices means for the practices that you now going to have this week instead of just doing drills against other teams, things you can work on when you stay in Houston.
I was just looking at our team and where we are now, just felt that it wouldn't have been as productive as we would have liked it to be if we went to New Orleans. But the flip side of it is we get the opportunity to treat this week as a normal in-season game week for us. So I think there is benefits to that for our whole entire team, our coaching staff, to be able to go through the process of a normal in-season week and we'll see. We're not fully game planning against the Saints, but we'll just go through how we'll operate with the in-season schedule, and I think that'll be beneficial to our guys.
So a little bit more practice, and this seems to be, too, seeing some of your blind spots as a coach, saying, man, our planning hasn't been there, or, we're not ready as a coaching staff to be there. So we need to take this week to get used to what a regular season week is, because we've been treating everything as camp. And as coaches, when there isn't a former head coach on this staff, when there's not the people in your organization that have really done it at this level, you may have to go in and say, we need a preseason week of what our practices are going to look like, and how we're going to handle game planning and getting ready. We need to be ready as coaching staffs and, get our situations ready and training to play against a team. And, we're behind the 8 ball. We thought we'd be more ready than we are. And that's what it seems DeMeco Ryans realized. And I don't know who else they have working behind the scenes that may have been able to tell them, guys, slow it down. You may have, DeMeco Ryans, when he came in, probably had a bit more hopes for this season, that you saw CJ Stroud's not going to be there. We'll play a clip talking about CJ Stroud in a second, but he's not going to be ready to be necessarily offensive rookie of the year this year. It may take him a little bit more time. That your wide receiver core, even though Tank Dell looks good, Nico Collins, Robert Woods is playing well, you're probably not going to have a breakout number one wide receiver. Dameon Pierce is good, but if they're going to load up on the line, pass blitz a lot, they may be able to get to Dameon Pierce some too. The defense is going to have some holes in it. We know all of these things. So maybe we should take a step back, focus on the basics again, as opposed to trying to expedite the process. But that being said, you can still take the positives of playing some of your starters in these preseason games, and a guy like that is Juice Scruggs on the O-line, the center they drafted with the injury to Queensberry, where he has had to step up, and that position battle that was going to be there kind of went away with the injury. So Juice Scruggs stepping up, if he's able to be there and be a long-term center for CJ Stroud, that would be a huge step forward in building this lineup that the Texans want going forward. Here's DeMeco Ryans today talking about Juice Scruggs and his progress.
I thought Juice did a really nice job of communicating, first and foremost. At that center position, we ask a lot of him in communicating. And you see a young guy as a rookie, and him handle the communication that he has to handle up front is very impressive with how far along he is to be such a young player. So very encouraged with where Juice is and knowing how much better he's going to be as he continues to get reps and continues to play with, the same guys around him. So it's impressive to see.
Yeah, Juice Scruggs' progress coming along, somebody that you wanted to see step into a role, take control of it. Now, once you get to the regular season, we know that you've not played against the best interior D linemen. Some of those guys may be out. And the interior D lineman is a hit or miss position in the NFL. We know that the Cowboys last year had to trade for Hankins because they weren't filling that role. Now they drafted Mozzie Smith. The Cowboys were worried about him. So several teams don't necessarily have a massive interior D lineman because the edges get so popular, and you want to blitz linebackers and you want to fill other holes, that position doesn't always get filled. Sometimes you just get a space filler instead of someone who can really do damage. So he's going to have to play against those and grow. But as of right now, it appears that he is ready to be a week one starter for the Texans as a rookie, which is a huge step forward. Another guy who is going to look to be a week one starter. And I know you may want to start Case Keenum here. There is, I was very against it from the beginning to start Case Keenum over CJ Stroud. I don't think Davis Mills is the guy. He still doesn't look any good. But Case Keenum at least can come in and temper and not necessarily expose CJ Stroud and let him get a little bit more used to the speed of the game and not let him throw too many picks early on. Maybe you want that. History would tell you the second quarterback taken in the draft is not a sure thing very often. It is top 5 quarterback picks are 50-50 at best, a little bit worse than that. So to see what CJ Stroud can do, there was a positive you want to take out of what CJ Stroud did in the preseason game. His numbers weren't great. He wasn't able to lead consistent drives. His second drive was pretty good. His first drive, not great. Second drive is better. But here's what DeMeco Ryans had to take out of it and finding the positive for DeMeco, for finding the positive for CJ Stroud.
Yeah, with the passes that CJ made, you see the accuracy, right? What you saw in college, you saw CJ just playing comfortable, and it was exciting to see him just playing loose, making the throws that we've all seen him make in practice. We've seen him make at Ohio State. So you saw him just being himself and being comfortable, and that's what he can do. Just have to continue to get more reps so he can continue to be even more comfortable when he's in those game-like situations. Nothing is more important than getting reps, right? Real, actual reps in games, and it was fun to see him just the game slow down a little bit and to see him make the plays that we've all seen him make.
So there is positives. You can see CJ Stroud has certain things that Davis Mills does not. And he has abilities that are there. And from week 1 to week 2, we saw him check down a little bit more. We saw him not necessarily try and make the hero play in week 2 as we saw him do in preseason week 1. But you're going to need him to find that middle ground. And that's just going to be a process with him that, depending on how he takes it, it's either going to be a long rookie season of a lot of checkdowns and a lot of people questioning if he's really got the arm to get it downfield and can he read the defense, or him throwing some picks and everybody questioning it that way. But there is some positives to take out of what CJ Stroud, his improvement in week 1 to week 2. We talked earlier about Mike McCarthy not playing his starters at all, and the Texans were planning joint practice week with the Saints. Don't really have to play our starters much in preseason week 3. Rest them up. You get a bye week in between, then you start the regular season. You can get your guys really ready, healthy, and feeling good week 1 because, once that season starts, the grind is pretty real with the injuries and recovery and everything else. Here's DeMeco Ryans, though, on the change of plans when you take away that joint practice. Will the starters play?
Right, that's a great question. That's with the changes in practice, right? For us, we initially had the joint practices scheduled, but now with us just being here going against each other, I think our plan with that will change. So we'll discuss that later in the week, and I'll have an update for you later.
So no updates yet. I'll give him credit. He knows that he's a bit over his head right now, having to cancel a joint practice, that he maybe needed to take a step back. But this is, we we're going to play him in joint practices, so they get to see everybody. We'll get CJ Stroud. We'll get those reps against other team defenders. He'll get to see teams showing different looks to him. Can we give him that practice and then maybe sit him in week 3, play Davis Mills and Case Keenum a little bit, and get him ready on week 1? Give him a little bit more game plan and get him a little bit more ready. That plan doesn't seem like it's going to work as well if you then take away the joint practices. Maybe this now will be a point of, hey, let's show these rookies how we game plan in the NFL for our next opponents, and really game plan the Saints more as, instead of a preseason game, more of getting your reps in line for a regular season game. So we may see some more starters playing for the Texans this week. The Saints will probably not play a ton of starters, but I think we could see it from the Texans. And finally, one more interesting note he had. This one's a short one. DeMeco Ryans talking about the defensive play calling and where it stands going forward.
Yeah, well, we use the preseason in a way where Burke has called the plays throughout the preseason, and I've had my input as well, and it's been running fairly smoothly over the past 2 weeks.
So Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator, has been the play caller for defense, allowing DeMeco Ryans a little bit more freedom to become a head coach and learn all of the game management, being a part of offense and defense, really trying to take on the head coach role. I think that's important. Now, part of why you hired DeMeco Ryans is for his defense, but this is something that, as you have everyone taking the highest position they've ever had in the NFL, I don't necessarily want any of these coaches taking on too much. So if you have a defensive coordinator you can trust, you can game plan with him and let him be the play caller during the game to allow yourself a little bit more freedom, to allow yourself to have the override power and veto power on offense and defense. Because if you're defensive play calling, you're probably not going to be as focused on that offense. So it allows DeMeco Ryans to be a bigger overseer for the Texans. And in reality, the coaching staff this year for the Texans is as much of a learning experience as for a lot of these players. This is not going to be a great year in Houston Texans football history, I do not believe. but it could be a very, very important year for the future of Houston Texans football.